An ordinary citizen, what would have happened?
I'd have taken him into jail.
Tonight, an Action News exclusive, a former Brownstown Township police officer blowing the whistle on what he says is a decade-long cover-up.
It involves a fellow officer pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving, only to be driven home by a supervisor.
That officer, who was allowed to keep his job, is now facing new drunk driving charges in another state. The 7 investigators first exposed that troubled cop last month.
Now the officer who pulled him over a decade ago is talking to our Jonathan Carlson.
He was a Brownstown Township cop for nearly 10 years. That was until he was told to look the other way.
Why should people believe what you have to say?
Truthfully, I don't care if people believe me.
He cares, he says, about exposing what he believes is a police department that swept a fellow officer's wrongdoing under the rug. Michael Patrick McCarthy, a veteran sergeant with the Brownstown Township Police Department, will go on trial in October. He's facing drunk driving charges in Las Vegas. Last month, the 7 investigators exposed his run-in with the Nevada Highway Patrol. Witnesses claiming his SUV swerved across lanes and jumped a curb. Officers saying his eyes were watery, glassy, bloodshot, and his speech heavily slurred. He admitted to downing 6 or 7 beers. When we tracked him down at his Brownstown apartment,
I got no comment.
he declined to talk, but it's his recent arrest that exposed a checkered past that appears to have gone unchecked for years. Old court records uncovered by the 7 investigators show in 2006, McCarthy was accused of being drunk in an interrogation. Then, later that same year, while off duty, he was pulled over by 2 fellow officers for driving erratically. One officer stating McCarthy almost killed him with his vehicle. McCarthy later admitted drinking 5 to 10 beers. The 2 officers at the scene didn't conduct sobriety tests. Instead, a supervisor made the call to drive McCarthy home without incident. It reeked of special treatment, and it still does to one of those 2 officers.
If this was an ordinary citizen, what would have happened?
I'd have taken him into jail.
The former officer, who's speaking publicly for the first time, was employed with the department for nearly 10 years. He walked us through that night. 911 put out a bulletin.
She was receiving several calls from motorists on southbound I-75 that there was a drunk driver all over the road, had almost struck several people, almost caused several crashes.
Another officer?
He got on the radio rather excitedly and said that he had just about been struck by a vehicle going by him while he was on the traffic stop. He had to jump on the hood of his car to avoid being hit.
That vehicle, allegedly McCarthy's. McCarthy was stopped.
I saw that it was McCarthy alone in the vehicle driving it, and he just said, "Hey Jay, it's me." I did not say a word to him. I walked back to my car and I called my supervisor. I asked him if he wanted me to give him a breathalyzer or a PBT, write a ticket, write a report, anything, and he said no, just clear the scene.
He says top brass promised to discipline McCarthy and referred him to alcohol treatment, which court documents say McCarthy refused. The 2 officers at the scene that night demanded charges. Township leaders sent the case to MSP for investigation, but a lack of evidence and time passed led it nowhere. Township attorneys recommended McCarthy be allowed to continue carrying a badge and weapon for nearly a decade.
Is this somebody that should be carrying a badge and a gun?
Not in my opinion.
Last month, we attempted to speak to the law firm that represents the township. They refused comment. Anybody home? As did the director of public safety. We gave him another opportunity to speak with us just this week. We never heard back. As for our whistleblower, he says he was forced to resign just months after raising concerns about the handling of the McCarthy situation. After 15 years in law enforcement, he was effectively finished. He's hoping this most recent arrest doesn't allow McCarthy to skirt responsibility.
He's certainly violating a policy as far as conduct on becoming an officer. McCarthy's not the problem. The problem are the people that are supervising him and are supposed to be doing something about it. Why didn't the city council say, "Chief, you dropped the ball on this, you're out of here"?
Our attempts at accountability have been met with resistance. The supervisor of Brownstown Township, the only public official to return our calls, says McCarthy is on medical leave, and due to a workers' comp claim, they can't comment on his employment. And will wait until his case is closed before making a decision on his future. The supervisor admitted, however, he and many on the current town board were not aware of McCarthy's past, just this most recent incident. Why he's been allowed to remain on the force for a decade after that 2006 episode remains unanswered. I'm Jonathan Carlson, 7 Action News.
All right, thank you.